Swipe Up, episode 230, the podcast where I share my unfiltered thoughts on the latest news and entertainment updates. I'm your host, Ray Taylor. Another Norfolk Southern train derails in Springfield, Ohio on March 6th, causing 28 cars to slide off the tracks. No one was injured in this incident, and the cars, thankfully, were not carrying any toxic materials. At least that's what they're saying. But we all know that wasn't the case prior to that. The previous Norfolk Southern train that derailed, and then you had them lighting on fire, then making all of those chemicals airborne, thus causing massive death from fish and birds, people sick, people getting rashes, people not allowed to go into their basements because they're told that that's where these chemicals will settle. Just a lot of horrific things. We're seeing the government cover it up. We're seeing the corporation, Norfolk Southern, doing little to nothing to actually take responsibility for what was a massive chemical attack on a gigantic population of a state. I mean, I don't know how many people, but if this had happened, if a person did this or a group of people did this, it would be considered it'd be like a chemical warfare domestic terrorism attack. But because it's a company who, because they do not invest in the infrastructure of their business, similar to electric companies in California who don't invest in their equipment. The equipment fails, causing massive fires in the instance of California and the power companies. In Ohio, we have Norfolk Southern. Of course, there was the big strike that was happening where people who work for the company were demanding vacation time, were demanding fair protections, and also highlighting the fact that there was a lot of safety issues, how all of those things were kind of swept under the rug, and now we're faced with this catastrophic, devastating thing for not only the environment, for the health of countless individuals. And because it's a business, nothing is done. The CEO doesn't face any kind of criminal action. If anything, if they're lucky, maybe they'll get somebody like Aaron Brockovich, who showed up in Palestine, Ohio. I think that's the place it's called. Showed up, and she has been labeled as a domestic terrorist because she's the person. If you've seen the movie Aaron Brockovich, she's the person that helped create a class action lawsuit against PG&E, who was poisoning people and causing massive cancer outbreaks in the population of people who were drinking this tainted water with something that they tried to cover up, actively tried to cover up. And again, happening again, because in this country, in the United States of America, profit is far more protected, businesses far more protected than individuals. You look during the protests, the media, the government, the majority of people, especially on the Republican side, who defend business and defend big government despite their delusion that they think they're for small government, cared way more about the businesses that were being destroyed, far more than the human beings who were being beaten by the police, far more than the people who were killed by the police that inspired the protests to happen. Like, the human life involved is very little, has very little weight in what they care about and what they're trying to protect. They care far more about the CVS that gets burned down, which, by the way, the property damage that took place in those areas at those times were done by white supremacists and Republicans that wanted to blame the Black Lives Matter peaceful protests on the property damage. And we'll get into another story that has a very similarly related outcome, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that we're living in a time, we live in a country that will do that businesses and corporations can literally get away with poisoning towns, can literally get away with murdering people, countless people, giving cancer to entire populations, and nothing will happen. The financial penalties, if they ever face financial penalties, are so minor in comparison to the profits that they're able to rake in, because they do not care about safety issues. They do not care about the people that work for them. They do not care about the people that end up getting poisoned. Like, in a just world, the company involved in that kind of destruction, the companies, these oil companies that are involved when their pipelines break and the poisons, the oil goes into water and damages not only the livelihood of the animals and things living out in nature, but also the people, the countless fires that have been started because of electrical companies that don't want to upgrade their equipment, that have faulty equipment that breaks down and causes fires all the time. Like, in a just world, if there was actually justice in this world, then those companies, the people who were in charge of those companies, the executives that vote in the board of representatives in those companies, the people, the upper echelon of people in charge of those companies would be executed, would be charged with murder, would be charged with domestic terrorism. But because we live in a capitalist society, we do everything. The government protects these people. You have a massive population who will do everything to vote for politicians who protect businesses from dying far more than their neighbor from dying. They would rather have some stranger's business survive than some stranger's life continue, as we saw during the pandemic. It is absolutely insane, the priorities people have. Just how absolutely inhuman. And so many of these people like pat themselves on the back because they're Christian, because they believe in God. They think they're like holier than thou, and yet they do so much to protect money, to protect businesses, that completely chew up and spit out any kind of humanity that would exist in this country. It is absolutely disgusting. So not surprising that another train derailed from Norfolk Southern, right? So 2 in a month. Derailment was the second major incident in Norfolk Southern in a month, following the train carrying toxic chemicals that derailed on February 3rd in East Palestine, Ohio. Officials, including the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, examined the site and found it safe with clean air, soil, and water. So, I mean, you got to take all that stuff with a grain of salt. How often are they actually protecting people? How often does it actually happen where people's lives are actually the priority and not the profit of some corporation? And it's because these corporations can lobby and can choose the politicians that will be the puppets that they want, right? They fund the puppets, the people that will allow them to insert their control up their worthless souls and dictate their motions and how they vote and what they do and laws they pass and restrictions that they abolish. I mean, this is one of the reasons we have a government, is to protect us from companies that are destroying everything. Regulations are the reason why slavery doesn't exist. Regulations are the reason why children aren't being used in mines and to work shitty jobs, even though that's being rolled back in some red states, right? Regulations are the reason why we have like any kind of benefit to surviving in this country. They would rather have socialism for billionaires. They would rather have socialism for failed businesses. They would rather have socialism for police that are basically domestic terrorists. They would rather take the money collected in taxes and give it to all of those people, to police who kill people and steal more than burglars do, give it to corporations that fail to do their own job, to make sure that their stockholders get their checks in the mail, right, to make sure their VPs get their bonuses, right? Socialism exists for all of the people doing the worst inhuman evil shit in this country. And for whatever reason, these people are so against the people that actually do the work, the workers of this country, for getting any benefits. Like, they would do everything. We need to have socialized invasion money. We need to put money into invading other countries. We need to put money into police needlessly ending the life of innocent men, women, and children, unarmed men, women, children, on a regular basis. More than 2 people a day are killed by police. Giving this money to billionaires to run failed businesses. It is insane the type of socialism they care about, the type of socialism they vote for, where it only benefits the 1%, where it only benefits the most evil people in the world. They don't care. They have no problem with socialism for those people. But for everybody else, it is like, not only should you have to pick yourself up by your proverbial bootstraps, but you should also have to manifest bootstraps. You should also have to work 3 times the allowable time in your life to even afford to exist on this planet. And you can only exist in certain categories, or else your lifestyle is completely illegal. A precautionary shelter-in-place order was imposed for residents within 1,000 feet of the derailment, which impacted 4 or 5 homes. The order was lifted 10 hours later. One hopper carrying non-toxic PVC pellets spilled its contents onto nearby soil, but does not pose health risks, supposedly. The cause of the derailment is the same as all of the other failed things, because they don't want to invest in making sure their equipment doesn't fail. They don't want to invest in making sure things are safe. It's not part of their bottom line. It just cuts into their profit. And anything that cuts into their profit is horrible. If they could get away with not paying employees, they would do it. But thankfully, we've passed laws that the government is supposed to uphold. And slowly but surely, all of those things get chipped away because people want socialism for wealthy people. People want socialism for mega corporations. Those people should have the freedom to destroy everything in their path in service of profit, including human life, natural life, the environment, the planet. All these things are just not at all a concern, as long as these people can get what they want, and as long as the government is constantly able to fund them and not really punish them and not hold them to regulations, and to deregulate them as much as possible so they can even continue to profit and do more bad things. They say the cause of the derailment is unknown. I don't know. I mean, we investigated ourselves. It's the same thing with the police. It's like, we looked into if we're at fault for this thing, but it's not us. I don't know. Maybe it's magic. It's weird how this train derailed. I don't know how it happened. The National Transportation Safety Board will send investigators to the scene. It's like we're in a place where all these companies are choosing who is investigating them. They are choosing who is the one that's supposed to hold them accountable. And when you're paid off by the corporation that you are quote-unquote investigating, it is about as ridiculous as the police officers investigating murder that they cause. It is absolutely ridiculous. Norfolk Southern is still facing scrutiny. That's the toughest part. The public image of our company isn't doing good. Let's rebrand, which is usually what they do. They really ruined our brand name. Let's just rename it. And people will forget. There'll be another weather balloon to distract them. So they're still facing scrutiny for the East Palestine incident, and the company has agreed to pay the location of the residents the relocation of the residents during cleanup. Not really. They're doing the least possible. I mean, whatever they're giving them is not. They, like, everybody involved in that should be in a mansion with millions of dollars. And that company shouldn't exist anymore. Like, if you can't run a company without destroying human life and the environment on a regular basis, if you can't run a company without doing those things, your company shouldn't exist. You should be gone. We should allow companies to die far easier than we allow citizens to die in this country. It is mind-blowing. The EPA announced that Norfolk Southern would provide additional financial assistance to residents in East Palestine area. Which is just garbage. They're doing the least amount to make it look like they don't care. They could care less. If this wasn't covered by the news, if TikTok wasn't around, which they're also trying to eliminate, if we weren't able to see these things happen in real time and they were able to ignore them like they used to be able to do, they wouldn't be doing any of this. No part of capitalism requires businesses to actually give a fuck. This doesn't happen. The free market doesn't keep businesses from doing everything to maximize profits. Meanwhile, everything falls apart and destroys everything. They want to get as much money out of that as possible and then move on. It's ridiculous. Or they'll get some big government. The government will pay to do the infrastructure updates. Instead of the business, the government will come in and they'll get these politicians to write some big bailout thing. So they're not even using their profits to improve their shitty business. We have socialism. So the tax money from all the people who are dying, who work a shitty job, having to go out in these chemically enhanced universe that we live in, that money is collected together and given to these companies from the government, the socialized billionaire class. It is garbage. It is garbage. So, another train derailment by the exact same company where people are probably in a matter of time going to be getting all kinds of tumors and cysts, and like they're going to have all the kinds of cancers. I would recommend watching the movie Erin Brockovich and seeing what she did and seeing what that company did. And I would also recommend checking out the podcast The Dollop, which is a history podcast. They just did a 2-part episode on PG&E and shows not only all the fires, obviously the poisoned water, all the things that they've gotten away with and never really punished for. And maybe you'll think twice about voting for a Republican politician who is doing everything to benefit those types of companies. But you probably won't. Who knows?
New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.